Good afternoon. At this time, I'd like to call our Suffolk City Council work session to order. My first item for discussion will be related to the Suffolk Center for Cultural Arts and their 24-25 season. Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. The Suffolk Center for Cultural Arts 24-25 season is nearing with us. And with us this afternoon is the center's executive director, Thomas Yanazi, who will review recent projects and also activities at the center along with the upcoming events. Tom?
Thank you very much, Mayor, City Council, other members. I appreciate you welcoming us here. I'm just going to take us through a little bit. I have the agenda up here. My guess is that you might want to know where we are with our renovations. As you know, we're finishing up a $4.5 million capital campaign. But then I want to talk more about the evolution, where we are, again, with our season and how we're approaching our season, how we're approaching the center a bit more. But more specifically, quite honestly, I really want to try to focus on talking a little bit about why we do what we do. I don't know whether we share that narrative enough or that we share that information enough. And quite honestly, when I really thank the city for your support, and trust me, if it weren't for the city, I know that we would have a really, really, really hard time surviving. So we do appreciate your support. But the support isn't just for the performances and the galleries and things of that nature. The support really is for what we kind of are trying to do and give back to the city. But again, I don't know whether we talk about that enough. So that's something that I do want to just emphasize a little bit. And then lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about our relationship with the city, because it's one of my missions, quite honestly, personally, is to develop that relationship. I think downtown is just a wonderful place. As you all may know, I'm not what do you call it, a Suffolkian. I'm not from here. But it's a beautiful place, and I just think the opportunity is just outstanding. So I'm looking forward to developing the relationships to kind of help it grow, if you will. So to get started, just where we are with our renovations, we're about 99.5% complete. We have a few things that we need to wrap up, but for the most part, we're kind of done the capital campaign. You've heard this before, so I don't want to go through step by step. But, you know, we completely covered the building in a tanemic wrap. We replaced every single window in the building. We replaced all our floors, created broader seating in the theater, new lighting, new sound, new technology. We covered the pergola. All of this stuff was extremely needed, from what I understand. I wasn't here to see the building before the renovations actually started taking place. But my understanding is that there was a big need for this. We also added, and this I'll talk a little bit a little later, but we added an outdoor theater space, an outdoor center, and we also renovated the kitchen or the restaurant, which has been a huge success, quite honestly. We're finishing up some odds and ends, and basically they're related to what used to be called gestures. You are probably more familiar with that than I am, but it was a gift shop for specific kinds of artistic kinds of gifts, one-of-a-kind gifts. And we are bringing something like that back. However, we're going to have some working artists in there. We're in negotiations with a framer. Hoping to get a framer in there for downtown, things of that nature. But that will be an operating kind of gift shop with some working artists in it. So that's where we are with our renovation. But what I want to emphasize is that the renovation of the building that's not where the important piece is. It's the evolution of what we do with the building, what we do with our business, how we approach the community and things of that nature. And that's where I really kind of think it's really important. And I don't know whether this will... So you'll see a couple of things that I just want to point out there. That's our whole season, if you will, upstairs and downstairs. One of the things that we've changed this year is we now have a main stage and we have a downstairs. I know that you used to market the downstairs at the center, but we're really kind of taking emphasis. On our main stage, we are saying we're getting back and we're going to party like it's 1999. We really want to bring fun back down to downtown Suffolk. So we have a whole series where we're going to be starting out with the 90s, a Prince tribute this coming month. We're going to go back to the Motown era when we get to Christmas, Motown Christmas. We're going to bring the 70s and 80s back with vinyl radio, and then we're going to go back to the beginning, or the Mother of Soul or Mother of Song herself, Ella Fitzgerald. So we're really trying to cover and just bringing people back in. And make it fun. And we're trying to make it more of an experience. So we have dinner theater tickets available. So we're partnering with the restaurant, so you can come in and have dinner, drinks, and then go see a show. We have VIP tickets and things so that you can come and have some hors d'oeuvres and drinks and see a show. But again, what we're trying to emphasize more and more is the experience of coming downtown. We want downtown to be a destination where people can come and really have a good time as much as possible. In addition to that, we still have our family theaters being done by the Hurrah Players. Those are going to be 2, one in the fall and one in the spring. One of the differences that I want to point out there, and that I just want to emphasize that we are doing our best to try to really manage funds as much as we possibly can. What you see in the performances is we're not bringing in big bands anymore. We can't afford to do that. Historically, the center has been bringing in bands that, quite honestly, a 500-seat theater really can't afford unless you sell out and you can charge a good bit of money. So what you see is, for instance, The Prince is an interactive one-person show straight from Las Vegas, charges or cost us a lot less than paying for 6 people or a big band and putting them up and things of that nature. So we are actually trying to manage our performances in a way that we are actually making money. Quite honestly, historically, we have not been making money on the way we've been managing our performances. So that's one of the things that we need to figure out, is how we do it. Because again, when you have a 500-seat theater and you're in an environment where you can charge maybe 40 or 45, again, we have to manage what we can charge out there. Then we have to be really smart about the kinds of performances that we bring in. So what we decided to do is not just bring in a few performances, but we're really trying to emphasize local talent. The fact of the matter is there's tons and tons of local talent around here. And some have really good draws, and some can do a lot more than trying to bring someone that nobody knows, that might be a national performer, but quite honestly around here, nobody knows them different than the person who's right over in Hampton or whatever. So we're really trying to bring in and emphasize local talent as much as we possibly can, but still do really, really top quality performances. The other thing we're doing is we're emphasizing downstairs more. The fact of the matter is people want to have fun. So downstairs allows us to do kind of different kinds of performances. Those are our masquerade dinner theaters, our dueling pianos. We're going to have a comedy night. We're going to have a jazz martini night. So the idea, again, is try to get people downtown doing things that are good, fun experiences there. And again, we want to collaborate as much as we possibly can doing that. Just a couple things coming up just to emphasize is the Purple Piano and the dinner theater. Want tickets, I would get them now. The other thing that I want to emphasize is that we did add that outdoor stage. If I can say, that has been going absolutely fantastically. It's again, when people have something to do, they come. They've been supporting it every single Thursday, other than the Thursdays that it's been raining, unfortunately, which have been a lot of Thursdays. But it's been going really well. And the fact of the matter is, when you start seeing the people who are coming, the diversity, and when I mean diversity in all different kinds of ways, we have families coming now, bringing their kids, kind of sitting out on the lawn and things of that nature. It's really fun to see what that, just putting that space in there and what that's changed in the center. In addition to our performances, as you know, we have our galleries. And again, the thing that I want to point out is that we're really trying hard to diversify the types of exhibits that we put on our galleries. We want to represent and include as much of our various populations as we can. So you see we had a teacher and student exhibition for our sister cities. We have just wrapped up a Tangle Roots Capturing Black Cultures exhibition. Plein air is coming up. I'll talk about that very quickly. But a couple of the other ones I just want to emphasize. We have the Nansemond Nation culture. In January, we have a Lafayette. We're collaborating with the city to do the Lafayette exhibit. And in there, we as a center are actually bringing in a speaker, James Armistead Lafayette. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that story, but James Armistead Lafayette was an enslaved black man who I believe he learned 5 languages. He became a spy for Lafayette, was an extremely, extremely important historical figure, but a lot of times you don't hear his story because you hear Lafayette's story. So we're actually bringing in an impersonator to do one of our matinees to tell that story, if you will. One of the other things, we're bringing in metal sculptures. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Shadles, but I walked into Shadles to get our signs, and I was absolutely amazed at the types of metal art that people can do. So we're going to be trying to bring in some of the metal art, more of that population, things of that nature. So again, we're trying to stick with the traditional, but we're trying to break out of the traditional and starting to think about how can we represent more of the community and get more of the community involved in the center. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And just, again, an upcoming event, if you know anybody who's an artist or if any of you are artists and you want to exhibit, it's coming up really soon. And the other thing that I want to emphasize is the plein air is coming up. If you have not gotten your tickets for the Friday night soiree, wet paint soiree, please feel free to do so. As you know, we are more than the galleries and performances. We also have classes that we offer to the public, pottery classes, painting classes. Actually, I believe one of those is one of the classes that we do with Parks and Rec there. We just added a new type of class, which is a live model painting class that we brought. And that, again, went very well, brought different folks in. And we also are a center where we offer space for special events and special ceremonies, which we just had recently. Congratulations again. So we are, although we are a cultural arts center, we're not a community center. One of the things that we are living by is that we are a cultural arts center that serves its community. And we are doing our best to try to figure out how do we use the center in a way that serves this community in the best way we possibly can. And when I say the community, I don't just mean the downtown community, although that's where we're situated. I mean our city and our outlying areas. One of the collaborative events also that we do with the city is our music film series. And again, we'll be doing that again this year. It's a very nice event. And again, it allows, it has movies at $2, $3 a movie. So it allows access for a lot of folks who may not otherwise be able to have access. Why do we do what we do? And that's the story that I really want to tell. The fact of the matter is, thriving communities need thriving arts. It's been proven time and time again. Not only that, but children who get exposed to not just the arts, but experiential learning through the arts and things of that nature are much more likely to succeed. They're much more likely to have less disciplinary actions and things of that nature. So we need to use the arts to help the community. Because and I'm sorry, that looks like that ran all the way down, and I apologize for that. But something that I've noticed, and again, I'm not from here, so you know this much more than I do. But when I ride around here, I'm seeing that there are a lot of people around here who will never see the inside of our building, who can't afford to see the inside of our building, who can't afford to send their kids to some of the things that we offer, things of that nature. And we really, really want to change that. For me, it's not just about keeping the arts alive, it's about how to create access to the arts. And that's what we're really trying hard to figure out how to do. We're trying to work with 4Kids, foster care organizations, Boys and Girls Clubs. We need to figure out how we kind of create programs that will allow not only just the youth, not just the children, but also the parents. Because you're talking about people who never get an opportunity to just kind of go out and see a show. And they're never, even if we try to reduce our prices, we get down to 30, 35. I'm sorry, if you're a family, you have a couple kids, nowadays you're looking at a couple $100s that you're gonna have to drop. And when I go around here, I'm seeing that there's gonna be a lot that we don't. So what we're trying to do is try to create those moments. So all of our matinees, and you'll notice if you read through our matinees, they're all educational in some way. So what we're trying to do is all of them are free. Anybody, not just the schools, but anybody can walk in that day and watch them, because we want to make sure that the community has access. The same thing, we have a program that we have Artists in Schools program. It's one of the things that I'm extremely proud of. We served over 2,800 students last year. And again, when I see that 9 of our 11 elementary schools are Title I, every time that we can get an artist in a school to do a program for them, it not only helps teachers teach, it not only helps the school systems fulfill kind of holistic kind of education, but it exposes kids who might not otherwise be exposed to this kind of stuff to things that, again, that might transform them. So it's a really, really important program, I think, but it's a costly program. The thing that's unique about it is we're not teaching art. What we're teaching is we're trying to understand what the curriculum is, and then we're using art to create experiential programs, experiential classes that teach the lesson. So for instance, one of the themes last year was anti-bullying month. So what our dance teachers did is she created a whole dance. I'm sorry, it was a celebration of peace was the theme of the month. She created a whole dance that demonstrated anti-bullying. And it just took the kids through this really interactive, fun kind of experience, but it probably taught them more than if they sat down and you try to teach them rotely what bullying was about. So this is the stuff that we're trying to do. We want to continue to do it. But again, one of the things that I want to emphasize is the more successful we are, the more we try to reach, quite honestly, the more costly it becomes. And right now, when I look at our budget, we're about a little over 1.5 right now. About 78% of that will go to overall kind of operating. 16 will go to our programming costs, like our education programming, things of that nature. Only about 6% can we dedicate to the outreach kind of thing. And I want to change that. We need to up that, because we have a tremendous, valuable resource here in the city that I think we can be using differently. So with that, let me just wrap up. Again, we have our summer camps that, again, we're offering scholarships. We're working with 4Kids to make sure that we're offering scholarships to family or to youth that actually need it, that when they get there, we know that they wouldn't be there otherwise. And then we also, not just youth, but we work with the adults. We're working with Lake Prince Woods, offering glass classes. And again, we're just trying to get out there and we're trying to serve the community as much as possible. So let me just wrap up real fast, because I know I'm taking up probably too much of your time. We have a lot of reasons to celebrate. We did a lot last year. I feel really proud of all the things that we did, especially those last 2 lines. Like I said, we served over 2,800 students. We had over 7,500 contact hours with the students. Not only have we done work with students, but we work with senior citizens. We work with citizens who are disabled. We're doing a lot of good work, I think. So I'm really proud of what we're doing. But the thing that I do want to emphasize about this is what I was just saying, and that is there's a lot more to do. And that's one of the reasons why I come to you, when I come to other supporters of the center. It's not for the performances. It's not to help us do galleries. It's not to help us kind of offer classes for art and things of that nature. It's to help us figure out how we can use the center to help this community get better, help this community grow, develop, how we can help all children and all people to have access to things that we know are just transformative at times. So we just need to figure out how we do that, and we're trying our best in doing that. One way we do want to do that is we want to work with the city more. We need to get all these people who are in our center to be walking our streets and to be actively engaged in our downtown area. So one of the things that you'll see on the right there is that's a little map from our front area, which we just ran electric. We made into a park area. We want to be able to do performances out there and things of that nature. That goes down Main Street to your new festival park. That is 0.5 miles. It's a half mile. And Chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. But in my opinion, the more we get people just walking there, the more people are going to feel safe. I don't think putting more police in an empty area makes people feel more safe. It's getting people productively, actively engaged in the area. So what I want to do is every time in the city, we've talked about this, every time we have a festival or something going on, I want to be thinking about those anchors as much as possible. How can we have something going on where we are? How can we have something going on down at the park? How can we steer people so that people start walking that downtown area and seeing all that the downtown area has to offer? And I'm not limiting it just to that track, but I'm just saying that offers a really nice track. Matter of fact, if you look down Saratoga Street, we're directly connected. You can pretty much just see straight down from our area to your area. So again, I want to be thinking about how we can use the center in a way to become more community-oriented, community-welcoming, and quite honestly, to support downtown and downtown growth as much as possible. So with that said, let me just thank the people that I need to thank, and that's my staff. Like I said, all those things that we're doing, plus so much more, is all done by that little group of people right there. That and our instructors. So there's a lot of people spending a lot of hours, putting a lot of time in, trying to make all this work as much as possible. I also want to thank our volunteers, because we do have a really good group of volunteers. And in addition to the volunteers, I want to thank the city and the city partnerships that we have. I know this is just one picture of the partnerships that we have, but I mean, we are well connected and well supported by the city. I realize that, and again, I want to thank you for that, because it means a lot. And then with that said, I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank you for giving me time. I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time, but thank you for giving me your time. I believe in the center so much. I really, really want to make it work. It's a hard challenge, I will say. There's a lot going on, but the opportunity is tremendous. And I will say that because I think that you probably see the same thing about your city. I'm sure it's a challenge, but the opportunity is just absolutely tremendous. So thank you again very much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tom. Council, questions or comments? Councilman Rector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tom, thank you very much for that very informative presentation. Let me just start out with a general statement, and that is that Suffolk would be a much poorer and different place if we did not have the Suffolk Center for the Cultural Arts. The other thing I want to say is that I want to thank you so much, not only for the presentation, but also for the passion that you bring to the position. Starting with the renovations that were done to the building, first off, let me say that the building looks absolutely fabulous. I've talked to people who were even vehemently opposed to the color change, who have said, you know, now that it's done, it really, really looks great. And when I bring people come to me that have been away from the city for a while, and I put them in the car and I drive them around and I show the different things that are happening downtown, and I take them to the Suffolk Center for the Cultural Arts, the former high school. Without a doubt, the one word I hear most often is wow. It looks great. So you're to be congratulated on that. And then my last comment is I just want to thank you for, and you and I have had this conversation a couple of times before, for the efforts that you are making to broaden the exposure of the arts to every community within our city. It would be very easy for you and for the center in the position that y'all are in to take a little bit of a standoffish approach and say, we're a cultural arts center, you come to us. So I very, very much appreciate the efforts that you and your staff are making to say, we're the cultural arts center, what can we do for you and what can we do for our community to get you involved with us? And then, lastly, I really like the Thursday night things out there in that little pavilion area. I don't know who came up with the idea to put that out there, but that it is just a huge success, and it makes a big difference to the center. I haven't been out there as much as I would like to, but I was out there last Thursday, and it's great to see, as you said, to see the people come out there, bring their family, set their chairs up. You can get a cold beverage, you can go inside, you can order something to eat, or if you just want a hamburger or a hot dog, Ed's right there with the grill cooking it. So keep up the good work. You are a blessing for the city of Suffolk, and the Cultural Arts Center is without a doubt one of the very, very bright gems in our downtown area.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Johnson?
Well, and Tom, I just feel like I need to say as well, as we strive to make our downtown so much more than it is, you're part of the vision. I hope you know that. I think you're the right man for the job. I think the center is heading in such positive directions. I can't compliment you enough. Your honesty is very refreshing. The fact that we want access to everyone is where we need to be. And as far as I'm concerned, we're right here to be your partner. So whatever we can do as a city to make your job better and to make it move forward, I'm 100% behind it. So I applaud you, and thank you for what we're doing.
Thank you.
Councilman Fawcett?
Thank you, Mayor. Tom, thank you again for coming today. It's always a pleasure to see you. You can tell the passion that you have in your voice that you have spoken today. It's very infectious, to be honest with you. And, I like all the great things that you've done. You've got a good staff over there that's really, you all must get in a room and do a think tank type system, because to do the many things you do, you have to be able to think deep enough to be able to make these things work. And I go along with Councilman Rector's comments. Just a complete transformation of that center has happened in just a short time, where we've done things where at one time I went over there, the windows were falling out. So I feel like, we've made a lot of progress for sure. And you're right, nobody liked the color change, but guess what? We did it anyway because we thought it would, bring a different look to the neighborhood. And I love the idea of the lighting. I hope you'll continue on the outside to bring lighting in the different seasons of the year to light that up. Whether it be whatever the month might be that we could light it up would be cool. And just keep going. You're really reaching out there. And I think you're going to be more successful, and I believe you will. So again, with everybody has said, we are so fortunate to have you as our director and your staff of people behind you that are doing the heavy lifting with you. And to given this opportunity something, because most cities have a cultural arts center. And a cultural arts center is usually the focal part of your city. That's where people, the first thing I go somewhere on whatever trip I'm on, the first thing I'll ask is, do you have a cultural arts center? Just to see what I get for an answer. And I'm kind of surprised that what I see out there, we really have it going on when it comes to a cultural arts center compared to what I see. So we are doing something right. And of course, we got to keep you funded up to where you can operate. you can't operate on a shoestring. It has got to stop. And we are trying, and we'll just have to keep pushing the city manager harder in the budget to make the Cultural Arts Center that point that needs to have that help to make it work so that you can reach that community out there that you're trying to reach. Because you can't do it if you don't have a way to operate. And so as long as I'm sitting here, I'll help push that button to get you all the help that I can get you in pushing the staff and the manager here to make it work, because I believe in you.
Well, thank you, sir, very much. Quite honestly, we also need to do our part. We need to figure out how to make ourselves work. And I will say, one of the biggest helps is help us figure out how we get people to understand that we're there.
Yeah.
We are still one of the biggest kept secrets in Suffolk, unfortunately.
Well-
I just started going out on, I hope nobody, but I just started going out on Nextdoor because I never, ever do that. I enjoy my privacy, but I saw somebody making a comment about how downtown never spends any money for things to do and stuff. So I just finally just said, wait a minute, I need to respond. So I wrote a response and I laid out all the things that we did. In 2 days, I had 1.9 views. I had people responding, oh my gosh, I didn't know we had that in downtown Suffolk. I mean, that's all we keep on hearing. So we need to figure out how we get the communities and the boroughs to understand that there's this gem down here that is doing a lot of good stuff.
I think you're on the right track, so just keep pushing. And
Well, thank you very much.
hopefully the word gets around, and eventually, and there's going to be those people that are not going to want to do the specific things you're having going on, but that's their loss. But, at least you got them there, and you're doing the best you can with what you got. And it's eventually you might get surprised, and all of a sudden the doors might fly open, and you might like, whoa, where did this come from? So, we'll keep talking too. We're, as a council up here, should be promoting you as well. And so therefore, we'll do our part to get the message out and try to help you with that. So I'm not going to belabor it, but thank you so much, and I appreciate everything you're doing and everybody over there, including the volunteers that come in there and help every day to make it what it is. So thanks.
Well, thank you.
Councilman Bennett.
Thank you. I will be very brief. Tom, thank you a lot for the presentation, and a lot of information, I think, was put there that people that view council work session will be able to understand and see there are a lot of activities that's going on. And one of the things I want to commend you on is the local talent that you were saying that you were looking for to bring in rather than have to go out and get all the others. I'm sure that saves a whole lot of money by doing that. So I think you are doing a great thing looking at that. And just like you say, we do have a lot of great talent locally that could be used. So keep up the good work. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Vice Mayor Ward.
Yes, Tom, me and you met briefly. And the time we met, right then and there, I told you were different. And you have a passion for what you're saying. You have great ideas. You have a future. So I'm glad things are going like it is, and we're going to see something. Going to see much more going on. Thank you so much for being there, and I think the city will be behind you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Council, any other questions or comments? If not, I'll close it up. I don't want to be too redundant here. We've had the same kind of message, but number one, I really do appreciate the passion that you have for your job, and you're obviously bending over backwards as far as looking for further ways to engage our community, and that's all of our community, and also to be able to evolve with the times, if you will, to adjust what you're doing. It's obvious, I think, to anyone who's involved in downtown that the Center for Cultural Arts is a significant part of whatever revitalization we're going to endeavor downtown. And it's just like you said, the goal is going to be to create downtown as a destination for folks. And if they start at the Cultural Arts Center, and you're exactly right, to be able to start there and have foot traffic from there all the way down to Washington Street and branch out, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, where people are comfortable doing that, where we have eateries and shops and can offer goods and services to individuals that they can't find someplace else. I also want to take a minute and thank you for being one of our founding members of the Downtown Advisory Committee. I mean, you're going to be a superstar on that committee, and you will bring a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of enthusiasm to that. So I'm looking forward to see what comes out of our Downtown Advisory Committee as we move forward with the downtown revitalization. So once again, thank you very much for what you're doing. Keep up the good work, and I think it's fairly evident by the comments at this diocese that you have the support of the manager and council in regards to what you're trying to accomplish and how you're being of service to all our citizens. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I, again, appreciate very much everything that you do to support us.
Okay, our next topic for discussion will be a presentation of a draft of our 2025 legislative agenda. Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, the city's legislative liaison, Mindy Carlin, with Access Point Public Affairs is with us this afternoon. I was almost getting ready to say evening, to review the proposed draft 2025 legislative agenda. Mindy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I am Mindy Carlin, president and co-founder of Access Point Public Affairs. I'm pleased to have Cassidy Taylor, who is a public affairs director with our firm, with us tonight, who will co-present with me, as well as our brand new intern, Annie Ng, who is a senior at Christopher Newport. So let's jump right into it. We've taken a bit of a different approach to the structure of the proposed package this year. So as you'll see, we've divided and organized it per legislative initiatives, which are those items where we're going to proactively seek legislation to advance them. Funding priorities, which will cover funding priorities both at the federal and state level, and then other legislative policy positions, which lay out what your positions are so that we're able to react and weigh in as proposals come up during the session and otherwise. So that's kind of the structure. So we'll begin by talking about our legislative initiatives. So there are two primary areas of focus that we are planning, again, pending adoption by council for the coming session. They were both initiatives that we worked on over the past year that were ultimately not successful last session. So the first is to increase penalties to deter repeat zoning violations. So our focus with this legislation last session was to really try to target those situations where there are non-permitted commercial uses. The reason is because these situations are often accompanied by noxious impacts such as noise, dust, odor, things that are impacting the folks, the neighbors in that area. And these are often happening in residential settings. I included a few pictures that we got from the Office of Zoning that we used last year that really helped to demonstrate some of the situations that are happening. And the challenge is that the existing penalties are simply not sufficient to deter this action, and they actually, those that are committing these repeat violations are building that into the cost of doing business. So we will be working to bring forward legislation again to try to advance this so that the city has additional tools to try to deal with these complaints that are coming most often from neighbors who are impacted by these situations. The next legislative initiative is to obtain approval from the legislature to provide enhanced retirement benefits for our local E911 dispatchers. So we know that these dispatchers are really what we call the first of the first responders. You know, they're the ones taking these calls and figuring out what needs to happen to address them. Studies have taken place that rank these dispatchers as one of the most stressful occupations. There was a recent JLARC report, Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission, which is a legislative entity that looked at the eligibility of public safety occupations with respect to enhanced retirement benefits, that found that these dispatchers have quote, high and excessive psychological demand, and they are really responsible for handling an enormous responsibility to the community. These dispatchers currently are not able to, the city is not able to offer these enhanced retirement benefits to dispatchers, although they are available to firefighters and EMTs. The challenges that we faced with respect to this last session was concern not about what we were proposing or the value that these dispatchers play in the community or whether or not they're deserving of enhanced retirement benefits. The real issue raised by legislators was that if we were able to allow localities to offer these enhanced benefits for 911 dispatchers at the local level, that would create an even more significant challenge for state police dispatchers. And so while there's no fiscal impact to the state, if a locality chooses to offer these enhanced benefits, for the state police, there is a state fiscal impact. And so that really was what held us up. We've already, again, because this is in our platform now, we've begun to have conversations to set the stage for the coming legislative session to try to be able to move this forward by seeking this authority and these enhanced benefits for state police as well. So that will be the second legislative initiative, again, pending approval by council, that we are recommending. There are a number of funding priorities as well that I will let Cassidy talk about.
Okay, can you hear me? Perfect. So thank you, Mindy. I'll just briefly walk through the recommended funding priorities for the 2025 legislative package, most of which will be familiar from last year's agenda. The first funding priority highlighted on the slides is related to the Camp Community College Workforce Trades and Innovation Center. Staff is recommending that the city seeks $600,000 in funding to support its partnership with Camp Community College to continue to develop the 15,000 square foot Workforce Trades and Innovation Center. This will strengthen the talent pipeline for maritime, infrastructure, logistics, warehousing, and other skilled trade-dependent industries. This facility will be located in Suffolk, and it provides opportunities for residents and others throughout the region to be trained in these high-demand, high-wage careers. This funding request will go toward assisting in site development and rehabilitation of the existing structure for this much-needed workforce training center. All right. The next slide shows the rest of the funding priorities that are not transportation-related on the city's draft agenda. Over the next 10 years, for the first bullet, over the next 10 years, an estimated $425 million will be needed to keep pace with the city's school construction and modernization needs. With this in mind, staff continues to recommend that the city supports increased state support for school construction and modernization. The next priority on the list is to increase funding for temporary care, housing, and supervision of foster youth by local DSS offices, Department of Social Service offices. Staff recommends that the city should seek state funding to help offset local costs associated with those challenging situations where a local DSS office must house, care for, and supervise a child or adolescent while a safe and stable foster care placement is being sought out. Currently, there's no way for these local costs to be covered, so that's what we're recommending, that we should seek state funding. Another draft funding priority is for the construction of the local homeless shelter. The city identified the need for a physical shelter to support individuals experiencing homelessness and other vulnerable populations. In 2021, the city was awarded a little under $1.5 million in ARPA funding for planning and administering homelessness support in the Western Tidewater region. These funds were used to acquire the hotel to develop and establish the permanent shelter location and to begin the initial renovation of the facility. In continuance to advance this project, staff's recommending that the city seek $500,000 to support the second phase. And the second phase will include the final rehabilitation of the facility and site improvements. The next recommended funding priority is to continue to seek funding for the Crumbs Mill Pond Dam improvement. The staff recommends that the city seeks $3 million for the High Hazard Potential Dam Rehabilitation Grant Program to enable improvements to this Crumbs Mill Dam to increase the reliability and serviceability of this water supply dam and to protect Route 10 as an evacuation route. And the final draft funding priority on this slide relates to the compliance with federal lead service line mandates. That one got me tongue-tied last time too. Staff recommends that the city should seek $3 million for work related to the federal mandated LSL identification, verification, inventory, replacement, and public engagement.
I'm going to go through our transportation, long-term transportation priorities, which we have on this slide, and they're described in more detail in the packages that you have. So first up is the Hazelwood and Godwin Bridge study. 300,000, more than 30,000 vehicles travel on this bridge in a single day. It is experiencing significant congestion, particularly when incidents occur on the other bridges in the area, making it a critical water crossing corridor. Proposed parallel bridge improvements will help to address the current corridor capacity constraints and safety concerns associated with the reduction in travel lanes on the James River Bridge and the Monitor Merrimack Tunnel. It also will allow the new bridge span will also provide an alternative option when there is maintenance happening on the other river crossings. So on this, the city is seeking $15 million for a preliminary study of the corridor, NEPA, and 30% of the preliminary engineering costs. The next project I'll highlight is the Kings Highway Bridge replacement. I know you guys are all aware that bridge was demolished in 2005 due to disrepair, leaving a disconnect between Chuckatuck and Driver. The city is seeking funding to replace that former bridge with a 4,200-foot two-lane bridge over the Nansemond River that will connect Kings Highway to Godwin Boulevard. The replacement also will include a 10-foot multi-use path and 5-foot sidewalk. We have received, the city has received $3.04 million in federal funding, but we are seeking an additional $8 million for the remaining 70% of preliminary engineering. Next listed, we have funding that we are seeking for the Route 58 Gateway Study. The Route 58 corridor is the third heaviest traveled route in the Hampton Roads region, and it serves as a really important gateway to global economic markets through the port. We're seeking improvements to either improvements to the existing 58 or an alternative limited access 58. And so for this, are requesting $3 million for a feasibility study to evaluate those options and develop a path forward. Route 460 improvements continue to be a top priority. I know some of you may have been at an event earlier today promoting a project that is making these improvements even more important. So the Route 460 corridor is a key commercial freight and vehicular traffic gateway to the region. The city is working to widen and modernize a 3-mile stretch of 460 from the Route 58 bypass to Lake Prince Drive, and that will include an interchange at 58 and 460. A good bit of that funding for phases 1 and 2 has already been secured, but the city is seeking the remaining $65 million and change to allow construction of this project. There are 2 new projects that were added to the agenda this year for your consideration. They include the Wilroy Road widening, for which the city is seeking $10 million for a preliminary study of the corridor NEPA and 30% of the preliminary engineering funding, as well as the Nansemond Parkway widening. And for this, the city is seeking $15 million for preliminary study of that corridor NEPA and 30% of that PE. Preliminary engineering. And then finally, with respect to transportation, we are recommending that we keep on in the package funding to enable a study of an Amtrak passenger train station in the historic downtown. For this purpose, we're seeking $250,000 to look at the feasibility and siting of such a station. So those are our funding priorities that are recommended for this session. Now I'm going to walk through just very briefly the policy positions, starting with public safety. So we've recommended including restoration of authority for law enforcement officials to conduct public safety stops in the agenda once again this session. This is an important tool that law enforcement officials can use to monitor and reduce other illegal activities. And so to the extent there's legislation introduced on this, we will have the ability, if approved, to be supportive of that. We are also recommending that we be able to support those items that will reduce the role that local law enforcement officials play in responding to mental health crises. We are looking to ensure that we can protect against any restrictions on the use of public safety related technology that is enabling solutions and additional tools in the community. So this would include any legislation that would threaten the ability to use license plate readers, gunshot detection technology, public video systems on public rights of way, and other force multiplier technologies that provide additional tools for law enforcement. We'll be advocating, again, pending approval, to maintain current fees and the commission structure for our regional correctional facilities, and would like to also keep in the platform a support for flexibility to enable a juvenile detention facility for the 5th Judicial District. You all may recall that last year, the city of Chesapeake chose not to house our juveniles, and that has created a significant challenge for the 5th Judicial District. And so we'd like to make sure that local flexibility to help address those local issues is maintained. Shifting to transportation, again, from our current 2024 program, we included a position statement on reform of transportation funding formulas. This enabled us last session to work in support of legislation that would enable whether or not a project is an evacuation route to be considered in the allocation of transportation revenue. Right now, there is no factor in any of our transportation funding formulas that recognizes the importance of that, and that certainly would be impactful for the city of Suffolk. Staff is also proposing the addition of a new position on toll relief, and that position is that we would support additional toll relief for those households earning $50,000 or less within regions with multiple river crossings without restrictions that may be tied to a locality's fiscal stress score. So as a reminder, there was a budget proposal that was included in the budget that passed the General Assembly and was signed by the governor in May that provides additional toll relief. However, the city of Suffolk, those who live within the city of Suffolk are not eligible for that additional level of toll relief because of the locality's fiscal stress score. So to the extent there is action that is proposed during the legislative session, having this in our platform would enable us to advocate in support of this position. In the category of finance and regulations, we are recommending including a statement to protect the historic rehabilitation tax credit. This has been a really important tool to help revitalize the city, the historic district. There have been a number of projects in the city that have benefited, including the Suffolk Center for the Cultural Arts, which we were just hearing about. Peanut Crossing and Jefferson Loft are just a few. Were successful in expanding this program last year, and so at this point we'll be looking to protect that so that it can continue to be a tool that is used to redevelop privately owned historic structures. And then also in this category, have a position recommended to preserve local government taxing authority, which would enable us to oppose any effort to diminish or repeal any of the revenue sources that the localities have now. This would include BPOL, local option grocery tax, or any other local tax. In the category of community development and planning, we certainly want to continue to protect funding for the historic African American cemeteries that we currently have access to. We want to preserve local land use authority and protect local eminent domain and right-of-way authority. So these are all positions that were included in the 2024 platform. In the category of utilities, environment, and land use, the staff is recommending that we continue to include a position supporting support and investment in farmland preservation programs as well as protection of forested land. And then with respect to other positions in this category, we want to recommend maintaining current stormwater fees and protecting against any water-related fee increases. The last two other positions really are important as well and are consistent with previous positions, that we are recommending a position protecting against unfunded mandates that fall down to localities and protecting qualified and sovereign immunity for city employees, and that would include public safety officials. So that is a broad overview of our staff's recommended positions for the coming session, and we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Carlin. Council, questions or comments? Quiet out there. Councilman Rector?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mindy and Cassidy, thank you very much for that presentation. I do just have a couple of sort of questions or comments, depending on how you want to look at them. Number one, I do hope the camp funding comes through this year. I know it was actually, basically promised last year, and through a snafu between getting from the House and the Senate, somehow or another it got lost. Because just this afternoon we were listening to the governor talk about how important workforce development is to the continued economic success of the Commonwealth. So I hope that's not going to be really much of an issue. But going to the funding priorities with
Yes,
the
sir.
schools, I know that last year we were able to tap into a couple of grants for construction and whatnot. Is that just simply a matter of getting those programs basically refunded, putting the money back in the till since we took some out, or will there be different funding mechanisms that we're going to have to go after?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Rector, so I think this is in the category of items that we will engage on to the extent that others propose. We know that Isle of Wight, for example, is going to be seeking local authority for a local option increase in the sales tax to help fund school construction. I think that could be something we could support. I think there are some other initiatives around gaming that could increase funding for school construction that we may engage on. It's hard to say, school construction and modernization funding is such an important priority across the state, and so it's hard to say at this point what the specific proposals will be that are proposed, but having that included in our platform will enable us to be supportive of those that are aligned with our priorities so that we can ensure that there's a significant amount of funding that's going to be needed over the next 10 years for our schools, and we need to make sure that the state is doing its part to help contribute to that. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but we'll know more once bills start dropping.
Sure. Okay. No. Thank you very much for that.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Johnson?
And Mindy, I want to thank you guys for being here. The new context here is excellent.
Thank you, sir.
I like the way it was presented, and I think it gives us a clear picture of what we're going after. Quickly on the schools, I support what Mr. Rector was saying. We really need to go after as much help in the schools as we can find, innovative, whatever it takes. One thing I have to approach, just because I am who I am, the Route 58 Gateway study, $3 million, 100% needed. But are we putting the urgency out there that I hope everyone needs to assume? Because it is the way you're going to be leaving Tidewater. 58 is of such vital importance. $3 million is not a whole lot of money in order to figure out what we're going to do next, whether it be to put a bypass in or to improve what we have. But the traffic in the last 5 years, the state knows, everyone knows, has just blossomed to the point that we've got to approach this in a way that is more than $3 million from my perspective, or at least let the state knows this is vital to this area and to the people that live in this city. So that's my only concern. Everything else, you're going in positive directions all around. But 58 really concerns me. So
Thank you, sir.
Just had to throw that out. Thank you very
absolutely.
much. All right.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely.
Vice Mayor Ward?
Always a good job. very pleasant when we meet you in Richmond. But you know, it might be off a little bit. But my concern about the historic African American cemeteries, anything new to that? Because, you know, like I said, I have a great interest in that. And if I have to go up there and do something, whatever you call it, talk to somebody, I need to, because, you know, I see it still going on. And I know you're trying, so what can I do? What, you know, we do? I guess I got people who are very much concerned with that. You know, we got one out there at Shoulders Hill, we got one downtown, we got one in Harbor View. I wanted to try to do something with that. So what can you tell me on that?
Thank you. Thank you, sir. The manager may want to comment on this.
Oh,
Yeah, Vice Mayor, we can, from a city standpoint, the legislation's in place for it, but we have to partner and request. That's what we need to do. And I can sit and share some more with you.
So I got to come talk
Yeah,
to you.
let
Well, that's
us
great
know.
then. That's even better. Yeah, I like that. That's good. And you said something, and another thing about mental illness. You said something about mental illness.
Yes, sir.
You know, that's rampant. I don't know any funds up there for that.
Absolutely.
Who we got
Yeah, so the position that we're recommending in the platform, in the package this year, is to identify opportunities so that law enforcement is diverted into dealing and addressing mental health situations less frequently, so that they can be doing what is better aligned, being on the streets and serving as law enforcement officers. And so there have been over the years a number of different strategies to fund alternative transportation, to increase flexibility with respect to how and who can monitor TDOs and ECOs. And so our focus with the proposed package as we have will be on ensuring that any and all of those proposals that can help support local law enforcement by diverting them less frequently are pursued. We had previously had a position in the platform last year to seek out support for the mental health and the wellness of public safety officers as well. And so I believe that some efforts are underway around that, and such that staff didn't feel that particular item needed to be in the platform this year, but certainly if council feels strongly otherwise. But that's really been our focus with respect to the mental health area for the coming session in the recommended package.
And you said something about gaming. You talking about the machines or?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So I know that with the development of casinos across Virginia, a significant portion of the revenue that's associated with gaming that's being paid is going to school construction and K-12 education. And so to the extent there is any kind of expansion of gaming in the Commonwealth, whether it be skill games or fantasy, I believe there may be some legislation related to fantasy sports to add some tax related to that, pushing to have as many revenue streams supporting K through 12 education, including school construction and modernization, that is one avenue that typically generates additional money for school construction. So that was the context.
So who will be in charge and how we get the money? I mean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that is all a bit up in the air. So with respect to casinos and sports betting, that is managed by the lottery and tax. And so there is a statewide discussion that's kind of happening around oversight of gaming in the Commonwealth. We actually have 3 different agencies that are playing a role in that. So I think that is to be determined. But the way that is working now, it is working, and that money is flowing through the existing formulas that are in place at the state level.
Okay, the reason why I asked that,
Yes, sir.
because you go back, if you can remember, when they talk about the lottery, we supposed to get some of that money would go like to schools. And I never could get an answer about how much money did we get in for the schools. Nobody can never know that number. I'm not saying you have to tell me that, but who will be responsible, how we'll know how much money is coming to us from the lottery, especially in Suffolk. I don't know how we can get that, Because the schools are going up.
Yes.
And we do need help. If you're going to say it can come from gambling, how do we get this money?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We can certainly work with staff to get you a breakdown of the K-12 funding that is flowing through the locality and the sources of where that comes from, so that you have a sense of how those various funding sources are supporting the K through 12 needs in the city.
I appreciate that information, and nobody never said it before, but thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Butler Barlow.
Thank you, Mayor. Mindy, thanks for your presentation. Excellent as always, and I like the new format as well. I think it's much more concise and more understandable. So I appreciate that and appreciate your presentation. You know, we all have our priorities and our projects that we like. So I have a question about under the utilities, environment, and land use. So you have support and invest in farmland preservation programs, which of course, you know, we have this in our comp plan and, you know of other localities. But my question is do you have any sense of what's going on around the state? Because at the point we're at now, it's driven by localities and it's driven by whether there's funding or not. So, you know, and I always point to Virginia Beach's Ag Reserve program, which is doing a good job, and they've have a creative way of funding it. But it feels like each locality is trying to figure this out on their own. And I just wonder if there's anything at the state level that would be more of a statewide initiative that would help localities kind of get their head around this instead of everybody trying to invent their own wheel? Is there anything hopefully afoot like that?
So thank you, Council Member. I think from a funding standpoint, I'm not sure, but we can certainly look into that. From a policy standpoint, I think because we're a Dillon Rule state and the Commonwealth has to authorize localities to do anything, including with respect to land use, there may be proposals that are statewide in their application that would help to fund or even authorize the purchase, transfer, or leasing of development rights or kind of co-holding. So there are some things that could happen on the policy side, but that's something we can dig in a bit more deeply and see what's happening at the state level and work with some of the organizations where that is their primary focus and come back and share that additional detail with you so that we can ensure that we're plugged in with the right people to be able to be advocating for that item.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilman Fawcett.
Hey, thanks, Mindy. Just to go back to the funding priority over here for the Camp Community College Workforce Trades and Innovation Center, we didn't get a whole lot of traction on that in the last one because I heard something like the funding fell between the House and the Senate. So tell me, where was the real spike in that thing, and where do we need to?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, thank you for that, Councilman Fawcett. So I think we're kind of stuck with that item, and I'm optimistic for the coming session. But what we had happened during the 2024 session was that it's a small amount, right, relative to the full state budget. So it can be challenging to get legislators to really focus sometimes on smaller items, particularly the legislators who we need to be focused on it, like Senator Lucas, who chairs the committee. And so what happened was, so that was kind of one piece of it, and the second piece of it was the role that the Money Committee staff play in the process without the members being aware. And so that's really what happened with this item, is that the legislators thought that it was in the budget that was approved. What they weren't aware of was that staff had chosen, rather than allocate the money for the community college system to specific projects like ours, which was included in the House budget, they chose to allocate that money directly to the system. And then the community college system ran it through the regular formula. And so it was, I mean, it's a kind of a nuanced process thing, but that is really what happened. There was no concern about the project or lack of support of the project. And honestly, like that evening after the budget was passed and I spoke to senior money committee members, they said, no, it's in there, and it wasn't until they spoke to staff that the different approach was shared. And so, as I said, we never make promises up here, but it is an important priority. We have already reached out to the Secretary of Education and the Secretary of Labor, who was very supportive, to try to do all we can to get this into the governor's budget amendments, which means we really just have to protect that during the session. Last year, that wasn't an option because of the timing of when the platform was approved, but because this is in there now, we're a bit better positioned to do upfront work. But, no one was more disappointed in that than I was, but I'm
Yeah.
hopeful that we'll be able to get it done this year.
And the reason I say that is because when we met in the Speaker's office
Yes, sir.
that evening, he was, raving about all in on this because it was an interesting piece that we were
Yes,
going
sir.
after. So we felt pretty confident, but, I'm thinking him being the speaker would have helped us a little bit more, push this thing to get it in the right direction before it got kind of sideways. But anyway, go back at it and let's see if we can maybe stroke them a little bit more this year to get that funding, to see what we can do.
Yes,
We'd
sir.
love to get this thing going because it's a need here, and
Yes,
we're not
sir.
going to get there if we can't get some support. So hopefully, and the state needs to be all in. After today's event, it speaks volumes why we really need to have that here for workforce development. It's just another big piece that will be probably well needed as we move forward. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Williams?
Yes, Mindy, I too would like to say the format is great. This is great. It's just so informative. So we
Thank you, sir.
appreciate you guys putting together the format. And I don't, I know what the Councilman Fossey said, and Councilman Rector and others. Of course, and I'm kind of confused when you say the community college camp, that $600,000 that we thought we had. It kind of slipped through the cracks, and you said since it's such a small amount, would it help if we raised the amount? So I'm just asking a question.
I opened myself right on up to that one, didn't I? Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think what was more, so that, in the context of during the legislative session, I would say that was kind of the challenge, but we got there. Senator Lucas was supportive, the Speaker was supportive, the Money Committee members were supportive. We had lots of letters of support from all kinds of entities in the city and in the region. And I think it was really the Money Committee staff, the legislative staff, play such a significant role that even the legislators didn't know. And so my lesson learned, and one of the things that we'll be doing on the front end this session, is meeting with staff just to make sure that they understand that funding that goes to the community college, the chancellor may not choose to send that $600,000 to Camp Community College for this project, which is what happened. So I think, we learn every session, and I couldn't have guessed that would happen, that we would be in both budgets and end up not getting anything. But it is what it is, and I take responsibility for that. But I feel like, we're very well positioned for the coming session, and I'm very hopeful for success.
Okay, so, all right. The historic African-American cemeteries, I want to touch on that for a second. You said protect the funding for the historic American cemeteries, African-American cemeteries. So there's money there now,
Yes, sir.
correct? How does one go about getting that funding?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. the manager will probably want to comment on this, but at this point, it's really about the city selecting a project and developing an application that is within the criteria for that program. And so I think that's what staff has been evaluating, is where there may be projects within the city that fall within that criteria where that funding may be sought. But I leave it to the manager to correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I believe that's correct. I'd have to go back and look at it a little bit more myself, but what we need to do is sit down and focus on that and make the application. If the project we're talking about fits the criteria, as Mindy just said.
Okay, one other thing, Mindy. It says protect local eminent domain and right-of-way authority. Can you explain that to me a little?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Williams, what we want to do is, over the years, we've been able to, when we have major projects, obviously we need right-of-way a lot of times, and you'll see one public hearing tonight on a water main project. But the key is it's getting more and more difficult as they erode our ability to do this when certain legislations get passed, is how I'm going to phrase it. I've got attorneys looking at me right now. I'm getting nervous. But anyway, the key here is it's making projects more and more expensive. If you take Route 58, for instance, the cost to get the right-of-way is starting to become a major part of the overall project. So any more impacts that we may have with the municipality to be able to attain right-of-way, we want to take a position to defend against that, is my statement. I hope everyone agrees with me, but that's the position I take.
All right, when using the eminent domain policy, for better words, when you use that particular, when you use eminent domain, you have to offer the person fair market value on it, right? But it cannot be below fair market value.
We do appraisals on all of the properties that pretty much that we acquire. Especially in this case, and I might have to get the attorneys to help me out on the full process here, but we do fair market appraisals. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, kind of, but okay. Yeah, it's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't take properties. We have to pay for it.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, with respect to that, Councilman Williams, we're not seeking any change to what the current law allows. The staff just thought it was important to have a reference to it so that if there was some legislation that would have some negative impact on your current, I would put this in the category of your current land use authority, that we want to ensure that all right-of-way, eminent domain, taxation, local land use, that anything that may threaten any of those things, that we are positioned to be able to protect what is in place now, if that helps.
Okay. Yeah. That's
You good? Councilman Rector?
Just real quick, I know you've been beat up over the Baldy Camp funding, but I just, if there's a minor little silver lining to it, and I talked to Dr. McCray about it, and he said that it has not hampered their overall timeline of the project, and they had, money to get started and whatnot, but, obviously it is going to be needed. We appreciate your efforts to bird dog it and make sure it is going to come.
Thank you, sir. It will be a top priority this session, pending, direction from council, of course.
Okay, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. I too like the new format. It makes it a lot easier as to what we're requesting based on the action more than what it is. And in regards to the Camp Community College thing, I was on the phone that day too, talked to everybody. It's like, what happened? Because I'd already spoken to everybody and everybody was good with it. Mm-hmm. Senator Lucas was good with it. Delegate Clark was good with it. Of course, Senator Jordan, Delegate Scott was good with it. And it was just basically exactly that when it was put together. And I think when I spoke to Senator Lucas, she said, well, I couldn't read it all, but it was just, I assumed it was in there. So I would be really, really surprised if this doesn't come about. So we just need to stay ahead of it, if you will. But it wouldn't be something that, in Mindy's defense, that you'd be looking for either, because I wasn't. Everybody's okay, it's good kind of thing, and then all of a sudden it wasn't good. But it was strictly a process issue rather than a will to make it happen. In regards to eminent domain also, I think a couple of years ago we added loss of revenue to what landowners get reimbursed for if it's a business or that type of thing. So it's not just the value of the land, but if they can substantiate a loss of revenue because you're taking a certain amount of land, that's part of the formula also. And I think that gets to be a little bit more subjective than just the cost of dirt. So that kind of slowed it up a little bit. Fortunately, our 460 project is not going to have anywhere near the issues that we've had on 58, simply because of the, what's on 58 versus what's on 460. So I'm not looking for that to be a problem. The 460 improvements, you got 65 million in there. I mean, that's a good figure, whatever you want to use, but I don't think we're that short right now. I think it's more like 48 million, but we got some extra in there.
We looked at it when we went to Smart Scale. We talked to the state, and we said with cost increases by the time we get
Okay,
there, so
I like
we
it.
put the number up a little bit, a little bit more.
Sounds good to me. I like asking for a little bit more. We've got some great projects. Of course, a lot of these projects that we're looking at, these long-term transportation projects, unfortunately, they're all called long-term for a reason. We're just in the studying state. And one thing I've come to learn since sitting up here is lots of things don't move really fast in transportation. Transportation issues are one, just as the nature of the beast. It's not that we're not trying to move them forward. It's just, the studies and the acquiring, the financing and the engineering and the right-of-way and the building. And I mean, it's a process, as Robert knows, but we work on it best we can. Public safety, you've got that in the second thing, reduce the role of law enforcement officials responding to mental health crises. And I would assume that also speaks to being able to provide transportation options for mental health and juveniles, so our officers or sworn officers don't have to be responsible for transportation, which takes them off the street for sometimes hours, sometimes days, depending on where you have to go, because if it's a mental health patient, you have to find a bed for them. And that bed could be 100 or 200 miles from now. So we need legislation in place that would provide for certification of individuals that could handle that task, could perform that task rather than our law enforcement. So I want to make sure we get that in there.
Yes, so we
as
wrote that
well.
one broadly to enable us to support any of a range of strategies, but the most significant burden on law enforcement related to mental health situations is related to ECOs and TDOs for sure. So that's very much our area of focus.
Okay, and I'm glad to see we've got the toll relief in there. I just
Yes, sir.
went to a forum the other night. One of the ladies grabbed me and said, how come Suffolk got left out of the equation? And it kind of blew my mind that Suffolk got left out of the equation also, but it had to do with that fiscal stress score, and I think everything was done rather hastily. And if I had to take a guess, I mean, a certain city need to be included, and there was only X number of dollars, so you had to come up with a formula that backed into the amount of money that you had to spend. But I think we need to really fervently stay on top of that to ensure that our citizens that could benefit from that toll relief are able to receive it. And our city is so diverse that in lots of cases and in lots of the formulas that are being used, be it related to schools, or this is a perfect example as well, because we are as well positioned financially as a city, but yet we're so diverse. Because we're positioned well as a city, then we're left out of that equation, the same way Chesapeake and Virginia Beach was left out of the equation. But when you look at the different census blocks that we have, we have a great deal of disparity in incomes from one part of our city to the other part of our city. So whatever we need to do to try to, make that happen. And other than that, everything, looks good. We're on track. I'm looking forward to seeing how successful we're going to be this year. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, that concludes our work session, and we do not have a need for a closed meeting, so this meeting will stand adjourned, and we will reconvene at 6 p.m.